So to our attendees, wow. Thank you so much for attending day one of our Leadership Summit. We were so happy to have you here for our inaugural Leadership Summit. We're already off to a fantastic start and there is much more to come. Remember, this is a two-day event, so we have a full and exciting agenda for tomorrow as well. Now it is time for our powerful leadership story, and we are delighted to have with us to share her story, Asiya Verbeska Hedin. Asiya is the founder and CEO of Bridgewell Professional Services, a leadership development and executive coaching firm in Southern California. She's a strategy expert turned leadership coach, helping her clients become influential, sought-after leaders without burning out, people-pleasing, or selling their souls. Now, here's a favorite quote that Asiya sometimes shares with her clients. A leader is someone who inspires the best from themselves and others toward a common goal. That means becoming a great leader is about becoming more unapologetically you. It was never about trying to be like someone else, so let's talk about what actually grows your leadership. It is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Asiya.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you. Thank you so much for the gracious introduction. And when I first heard about the summit, I thought, oh my God, this is so fantastic. And I'm so excited to be able to speak with you. And I realized, okay, so it's a room full of leaders and people who want to talk about leadership. But really what came to mind for me is simply how often, in business school, in leadership, we talk about how to get it right. What we don't always talk about is what to do and how to deal when we get it wrong. Is that fair? And so I wanted to talk a little bit to you guys about failing right. And I'll tell you what it is that I mean when I say that. So actually, I'll tell you through a story of two leaders. Okay, they come from different parts of the country, completely different industries, but as it turns out, their professional experiences are uncannily similar. And even up until one fateful day, where they were informed that a bold and courageous reorganization had resulted in both of them now being unemployed. So probably not too foreign a story if you've been working for more than a few years. Now, for these leaders, understandably, the shock and the awe of losing their roles and all the perks and benefits that came with it. After all, they were both, well-loved senior executives at Fortune 500 companies. So again, that shock and awe, the disbelief, the experience of unfairness, and thinking back to how many sacrifices they made over the years to end up here, right? They both struggled with the real sense of loss and the dismay that first day. And it was probably a week before their stories really diverged. And that's what brings us to the story of these two leaders that I wanted to share with you. Now, just to be clear, these leaders are fictitious, but not unique. So one leader we'll start with was gripped by really the embarrassment and the humiliation they felt at being laid off. They felt like an utter failure. They were certain that their career was over and that all anyone was ever going to remember is that they were the joke of a leader who got laid off from a position that they probably shouldn't have had to begin with. I know that sounds really harsh, but if we're honest, we've heard our brains offer up that kind of unhelpful, contribution, especially when we're down. So this leader not only felt the actual loss of their employment and their income, but the perceived loss of just how others might be judging their situation. So the leader retreated, they hid, what they experienced as the humiliation, what others must be saying about them was literally too much and they couldn't face it. They didn't even want to discuss it with their loved ones and their closest friends. They received, dozens of messages on LinkedIn, both were well loved. Those messages went unanswered for this one leader. They remained in isolation. And probably not a massive surprise, but the career did in fact languish. And eventually the messages just stopped coming. Their network dwindled. And then they said to themselves, see, this is just what I thought. My career is over. I failed, and that's the end of the story. So now I'm going to take you to the other leader. The other leader decided they needed a mini sabbatical and took a weekend at their favorite getaway spot to regroup. That next week, they reached out to their closest friends and allies to break the news and let them know they're exploring their next steps. They knew that this was one of those blank slate opportunities, right, that we don't often get. So they reached out to a couple of the volunteer organizations they were a part of, let them know that at least for a little bit of time, they had a little extra time on their hands. They started scheduling networking lunches, did some pro bono consulting with a couple of their nonprofits. They reached out to their alma maters. I mean, did all the things you can imagine. Ended up joining one of the boards. They had, you know, after all, at least for the time being, some extra time. And then they even decided to get a little entrepreneurial and let their network know that they were open to some consulting on the side. I mean, what is there to lose while they're job hunting? So fast forward, and they have a small but thriving consulting practice, and they're partnering with some of their former colleagues that they always liked and kept in contact with. They found their footing after the failure. So, you know, what I really want to draw attention to and point that flashlight on is that here, one leader saw the temporary setback as a permanent condition. You know, they allowed the perceived failure to be a death sentence for their self-esteem and permission to treat themselves pretty shabbily. You know, the way I like to put it is that if their life was a book, the leader made the setback the title of their life's book. You guys with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah. Now the other leader, on the other hand, allowed it to be just something that happened. So I think there's something weird going on here with my camera. Okay. Just something that happened. It was, in their book, it was simply a footnote in one of the chapters. It was a very different perspective. And in fact, we have such a funny relationship with failure. We think as leaders that if we don't think about it, it won't happen. That if we control everything and everyone, then we're safe. But what do we know about that? We know that that's not how that works. And in fact, when we make decisions out of fear, we seldom get the outcome we're looking for. Like that's just not where our brains and our best thinking take us. Now, it probably sounds really logical, but many of us continue to operate and make decisions out of fear, and often not even out of a real fear, but out of fear of failure. And what this does is it causes us to fail wrong. So let me tell you what I mean when I say that. See, when we fail wrong, we fail in advance. We decide that the potential discomfort or embarrassment or the possibility of disappointment or what others might say, and frankly, what we might say about ourselves might just be too much to bear. So instead, we go on and we decide that we're going to fail in advance. We fail without even trying. And see what's so wrong about this, in particular as leaders, because we want to model this for everyone in our environment, is that had we failed right, meaning we tried, we went all in, and maybe we still came up short. We may have failed, but at least we got the benefit that came with trying. We learned, we got to be creative, we grew our resilience, and we figured out different ways to approach the situation and how to pivot when one path didn't work. You know, let's go ahead and try that one. You know, we got to approach this like a scientist versus a judge. And we continue to challenge our own brains. We got all the benefits that came with trying and failing. And that's really what it means when I say to fail right. So I really want to take this a step further, and I want to introduce you to a model that I created because it helps explain why people do what they do, even if it doesn't always make sense, including why we do what we do, even when it doesn't always make sense. So give me just a moment. Let's see if I can get this up on the screen. Otherwise, I'll need to describe it to you, which might not be quite as, might not be quite as clear as we'd hope. Okay. Okay, let me see. I'm going to share this section with you for a little bit and we'll go from there. So you guys, give me a quick thumbs up. Can you guys see my screen? Excellent. Okay, I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit so it's a little more center and you can see what I'm hoping you see and all that good stuff. So I want to introduce you to this decision driver journey. If you've been with me at any events in the past, you might also hear me refer to it as the career CEO journey. And it'll just take a couple of minutes to introduce, but it can be really powerful. And I created this again to help explain why people do what they do, including why we do what we do, even though it doesn't make sense. It doesn't take us closer to what we say we want. So really the model gives you perspective across 3 dimensions, right? The feeling or experience to you. And another way to look at this is who you're being. The next is where you're focusing your mental energy, right? Where all that brain power is going. And then finally, what's driving or triggering your decisions, or what I call your decision driver. So starting at the bottom of the model, this is where we are, this concerned citizen that's focused on themselves. This is often where we are after a particularly bad spell at work, or when our self-esteem has taken a real blow. Here, as you can see, we're focused on ourselves. And we might have even started to internalize some extended criticism or failed attempts at winning somebody over from maybe really going at it for validation seeking or people pleasing, et cetera. And here we're really shrinking back and often playing really small. And all of that in an effort to keep ourselves safe and out of the crosshairs of whoever or whatever we think is really putting us at risk. Now, here's the thing though, you'll notice that the experience is never one of safety. I mean, think about the last time you made a decision out of fear. Did you actually feel more safe? In fact, it's really an experience of fear and anxiety and everything that comes along with that, right? Losing sleep, high blood pressure, distraction from family time, Sunday night blues. It is everything but safe. Now, I'm going to take us on to the next level because the story's not over, but you might kind of relate to that bottom level if you've ever had a serious setback. Now, most professionals, though, spend their time at the self-conscious careerist level, this next level. And our focus here is on image and ego and really wondering what others are thinking and feeling about us. And we're so reactive here because we're trying to figure out what everything means. Like, what did that raised eyebrow mean? What did that smile mean? Why didn't they invite me to lunch? I was here. It gets very personal and we get very reactive. And we spend a lot of time in our heads worrying about what others might be thinking, what they're feeling or what they're doing as it relates to us. And we really, the focus here is, if you think about it, it's on feeding our ego. And a lot of our choices are coming from within that validation trap, if that sounds familiar. In this space, being right and looking good is literally everything. It is the most important. And a lot of the experience here is trying to control others' perception. And often it's because we're just trying to fill our own self-confidence or self-esteem gap with somebody else's temporary approval. So I really want you to hone in on that for a second, right? That self-conscious careerist is neck deep in that validation trap. And before they know it, they've given up their nights and their weekends. And I see some of you guys nodding for validation from someone that they might not even respect.
I see it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Wow. Your story has been great. The story of those 2 relatable leaders. I know so many of us can see ourselves there, and we just truly appreciate you sharing your story. I know that it resonates with many of our attendees and can serve as an ongoing source of inspiration for us. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Now, I am honored and delighted to turn the floor over to Dr. Sarah Steinberg to welcome today's keynote. Dr. Steinberg is our Provost and Senior Vice President at University of Arizona Global Campus. She's an expert on strategic leadership and education, including transformational adult education, innovation and workforce development, and the intersection of technology and education. Dr. Steinberg, we are honored to have you with us today, and the stage is yours.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not sure I'm all of those things, but nevertheless, it's, always nice having that kind of introduction. I really appreciate it. And it's really my pleasure to be here today with you at the Leadership Summit with the special responsibility of introducing our keynote speaker today. Before I do that, though, I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged and really thanked the Forbes Business School, the Forbes School of Business and Technology, and especially the Center for Women's Leadership, for which I've been involved since its very inception, for continuing to recognize and shine a spotlight on developing the leader and the leadership qualities that are within all of you. And I really hope that you will take the time to soak up the stories and the information that's being provided today by all the speakers, and participate in the different activities that have been planned. And also, and especially, take advantage of the networking opportunities that have been developed for you. All of these things have been done for the specific intent of guiding you and taking you further along your leadership path. And since I have the microphone and I am going off script for sure, and I'm sure I'll get my hand slapped later, but I wanted to take an extra moment before introducing the keynote speaker to just very briefly share some thoughts about my own leadership journey. And I hope that what I say might be helpful to you, because I remember starting my leadership, my professional career, which wasn't as a leader to begin with, but I had the mistaken belief that this leadership path would be linear. It would be straight as an arrow. I didn't know if it would be straight as an arrow going up or straight as an arrow going sideways or downward. I didn't know that, but I was absolutely convinced that it would be a straight path. And I really want to make it clear to everybody that I was very wrong in that assumption. My leadership path has been curvy and twisty so many more times than it has been straight. And there's a reason for that, and I want to share that with you. Over the past 42 years that I have been in my professional career, there are 3 principles that have guided my leadership path. And despite being a very classic introvert, I've really done my best to deliberately network. I've done my best to listen and consider the advice of others. And I have said yes more than I have said no. And these 3 principles have opened doors that I really never thought were going to be open before. The principles of networking, listening, and saying yes. And I've been a dean, I've been a CEO, I'm currently the provost of the University of Arizona Global Campus, and I attribute that leadership path, which has been very twisty and turny, to those 3 principles that I've tried to follow. So that's me. That was my off-script little sidebar. And now I really want to jump right into introducing our keynote speaker, because this is one exciting person. Oscar Garcia. He is the founder and chief empowerment officer of Aspira Consulting, which is a Silicon Valley training and consulting firm that provides culturally relevant career and leadership programs. He says he's an introvert, so something to pay attention to, but he has turned into an international speaker. He's given over 500 seminars. He's trained over 20,000 professionals across 5 continents. And interestingly enough, he describes his training style as a prac trainer, which is a great word. And what he means by that is that he actively practices what he trains others to do. He's an ESL student, but he's also a contributing author to Hispanic Stars Rising, Volume 2, The New Face of Power, where his story, I Am a Minority, highlights a lot of the things that he feels are very important. The importance of embracing the struggle, valuing our identity, and the power of vulnerability. These are really important topics. As Chief Empowerment Officer, Oscar empowers you, all of you who will be listening to him today, and he wants these opportunities to come to you. So again, my pleasure for being here, for being able to do this introduction. Let's give a warm welcome to Oscar Garcia as he shares with us how to turn adversity into positive career traits. Oscar, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Steinberg. Thank you very much. And, thank you for going off script, because those of you that have heard me speak, that's my style, folks, okay? I go off script. So thank you. And also, I love the 3 principles that you shared, because as you were sharing them, Dr. Steinberg, I'm like, yes, that's what I've been doing. So thank you. Everyone, I'm really thrilled to be the opening keynote speaker and to talk about how to turn adversity into positive career traits. And let me see if I can share my screen. 1 second. All right, here we go. All right. So again, same thing, thumbs up if you can see my screen. Yes? Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone. I want to make this as engaging, as interactive as we can in the virtual world. So I have two asks. Number one is if you can, barring any technical issues or whatever other situations you might be in, turn your camera on. If you are worried about, your room, your house being messy, I haven't cleaned my room in a month. If you're worried that maybe you have, messy hair, listen, I'm losing some of my hair. So I want you to feel at home. As we say in Spanish, mi casa es tu casa. My house is your house. So please turn on your camera. The second ask that I have, very simple, is feel free to ask any questions that you like. You can submit it via the chat. I know Aubrey is going to be helping moderate the chat. I promise you also that I will leave some time at the end to answer any questions. And then lastly, I do have Angelica, she's my daughter, Angelica Garcia, who will also share, some links if you want to connect via LinkedIn and so forth. So, all right, folks, we're going to get started here. So again, turning adversity into positive career traits. Just a really quick agenda. Number one is, before I get into the meat of things, I want to talk about what I refer to as first things first. What are some foundational things that we need to do? Number two, we'll get into how to uncover some of these career traits.
Okay, don't trash.
I did. How do you even do this?
There we go. All right. There we go, unmute, there we go. So secondly, I'll be talking about uncovering career traits. Number three, I'll get into how to map out these positive career traits. Number four, I'll talk a little bit about our values. It's very, very important. I believe our values are like a tail to a kite. Without a tail on that kite, we're just kind of all over the place. So they guide us. And then lastly, I always want to leave you, my audience, with some simple actionable, digestible steps that you can take. And so I'm going to leave you with what I refer to as a 10-minute daily plan. So interesting enough, as Dr. Steinberg was talking about, how she thought that her career journey was going to be linear, I was thinking, it's like, did she like see my presentation, my talk here? Because this is exactly my point. I too thought the bill of goods said all I needed to do was, go off to college, get a good education, and I would get a good job and live happily ever after until I retired. And as you're going to see in a little bit later, my career journey certainly has been like the bottom graph, up and down, up and down. Next, what I want to talk before I get into things, I want to also share with you really quickly a personal story in terms of imposter syndrome, because this certainly has affected or impacted some of the struggles that I've had to overcome and some of the setbacks, and also part of the reason why it's taken me a long time to kind of turn that adversity into positive career traits. So I'm a first generation college student, first generation professional, the only one out of 10 siblings that went off to college. In high school, I had good grades in my English class, A's. And then all of a sudden I go to UC Berkeley and they tell me, Oscar, your writing is horrible. It needs help. And they put me into this remedial English class that you only got 2 chances, 2 semesters to pass that class. Otherwise, if you didn't pass it, they booted you out of the university. And talk about feeling imposter syndrome, because I was like, wait a minute, did my high school lie to me about my ability to, my English skills? And all of a sudden, I saw 30,000 students, 30,000 brains at the UC campus, and I did not consider myself that smart. And I was questioning myself whether or not I belonged there. Some of you are maybe have experienced this. Maybe some of you are going through this too as well. Now, I do know that I believe tomorrow there's going to be a session specifically talking about imposter syndrome. So tune into that. But I just want to let you know in terms of what I did that has helped me overcome some of this imposter syndrome. Number 1, folks, acknowledge our imperfections. We are all imperfect. We all are. Okay, I'm sure already, I haven't even spoken for like 5 minutes and already you pointed out some of my imperfections. That is okay, because those of you that have your camera on, or if you don't have your cameras and you have a picture, I've already pointed out in my mind some of your imperfections. So guess what? We're even. Number 2, folks, everyone wants all the tactical answers. Like I do, again, some career and leadership training. And like, for example, job seekers, Oscar, help me with my resume. Help me write my cover letter. Help me with my LinkedIn profile. But no one ever asked, Oscar, help me build my self-confidence. Because folks, if we don't have the self-confidence, right, then how can we use some of these tools? It's like, for example, I'm afraid of heights. If I wanted to become a cable repair person, and obviously I'd have to climb the poles and all that. You can teach me as much as you want, you can give me all the tools, but if I don't have the confidence to overcome my fear of heights, all the training and all the tools are not going to be helpful. Number 3, serve others. One of the things too that I've learned, folks, is when I take my eyes off myself and I place it on the needs of others, I realize that, wow, you know what? There are some people out there in life, many people out there in life that have overcome much greater challenges than I have, and it really puts things into perspective. Number 4, find a mentor. We hear this consistently, right? Find a mentor. You identify a leader, folks, and I guarantee you that they either have or have had someone get to where they are at. And then lastly, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. If there's one thing that I wish I could go back and change, it would be to believe in myself a lot earlier in life. Okay, so let's get into first things first here, folks. One of the first things that I believe we need to do is we need to let go, excuse me, of some of the baggage that we carry. Some of the baggage that we carry. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean of some baggage. Number 1, generational baggage. Folks, I am 53 years old. 53 years old. And you know, one of the things that in American corporate culture, we talk about is retirement. When you get to be 60, 62, whatever, 65, or your pension, then you retire. That's actually a generational baggage, in my opinion. I've been blessed. One of the silver linings from the pandemic is the ability for me to live and work multinationally. You see this picture behind me, folks? I didn't download it off the internet. I took it from Puerto Vallarta. I'm not looking forward to retirement. I'm looking to live forward to living life. And that's one of the baggage, because I talk to so many people, so many professionals, and they don't get what I just said right now. Number two, gender expectations. Being Mexican, being Latino, oh my gosh, is this one of the things that Latinos, Mexican culture has to overcome? I remember my dad, he had one standard for us boys and another standard for my sisters. Again, I don't agree with that, but some of these gender expectations. There's a saying in Spanish, calladita te ves más bonita. Quiet, you look prettier. You know what I tell my daughter? Speak up. If you have to, slap some of those bored men, okay? And then lastly, some of the cultural programming too, as well, that we sometimes baggage that we need to leave behind. My dad, right? And again, in Latino culture, be humble. Let your actions speak louder than your words. And on the surface, that makes sense, folks, right? Humility. But there's a time and a place when we need to speak up. When we're applying for a job, when you're looking for a promotion, is that not the time when we need to let them know, that prospective employee, that we are the best? Absolutely. So again, these are just some examples of some of the cultural baggage that we need to let go and leave behind. Number two, we need to do some addition and subtracting as well. What do I mean by this? Folks, number one, continuous learning. Continuous learning. Some of us, we graduate from college and we never open up a book again. I'm going to tell you something. One of my greatest weaknesses is reading. I easily fall asleep reading, but I know how important learning is. So you know what I do now, folks? And I've been doing this for about 7 or 8 years. Audiobooks. Audiobooks. And some people are like, well, geez, Oscar, if you listen to books, how much do you retain? I don't know, Bob. Maybe it's 10%. Geez, Oscar, that's not a lot. Well, it's more than your zero, Bob. Like, what's your next excuse? Always be learning, folks. Number two, peers. As a parent, especially when my kids were younger, always concerned who my kids' friends were. I'm going to tell you something, folks. The power of association is a universal law that doesn't change when we become adults. In fact, some of us today need to go back and do some summer cleaning of some friends. And I'm not saying hate on them. No, what I'm saying is some people, we need to love them from a distance because they have emotional colds. And then lastly, folks, that self-talk. Again, as a leader and leadership principles, we hear so much about how we talk to ourselves the most. And I want to give you an example of something that I've done to help me with this self-talk. And that is, a while back, I rewrote my script of what I said to myself. And this is part of I wrote a personal commercial, and this is what I said to myself, and I wrote down. I said, today is the greatest day of my life because I'm a big dreamer. I dream big. I dream big about everything. I have faith in God. I seek prosperity and happiness from my family. I have faith in God. I talk only prosperity. I express only happiness. I'm a leader. I consistently praise others, and my magnetic personality attracts people to me. I'm always positive and love life. Folks, I would read this commercial 3 times a day, on the morning, on the way into the office, at lunchtime, and on the way home. And I remember being at a red light and because I read this book called The Magic of Thinking Big, and they're like, do this, okay? Okay, well, fine, okay, I'm gonna try it, see if it works. And I remember being at that red light and thinking like, oh my gosh, probably the person next to me is thinking I'm crazy, like speaking to myself. You know what, Oscar, keep doing it, keep doing it. And you know what today, folks? And thank you, Aubrey, for the amazing, and Misty, Bill, and those of you that shared some of the posts. But you know what, some of the things that people say, Oscar's so energetic, so witty. Folks, I'm an introvert. Introverts are not supposed to be witty and energetic. but I am a firm believer in positive self-talk. I'm also a firm believer that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I certainly changed, folks. Next, stop comparing yourself to other folks. Run your own race. This is something that we do so much, right? We did it in high school, we did it in middle school, and as adults, we still do it on social media. Oh my gosh, Asia's over there talking to, this company, or Oscar's talking, doing a keynote for Ford. Why isn't it happening to me? You know what, folks? It's taken me over 25 years to get out of my shell. Yes, I'm a slow learner, but I'm not a quitter. And I don't compare myself to other people, folks. Run your own race. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Number 5, one of the things that stuck, I worked in the tech industry for startups, and one of the things that stuck in my mind by one of my CEOs is he said, Oscar, it's okay if you come to me with a problem, a challenge, whatever. Yes, because we're learning together. But when you do come with a challenge or a problem, I want you to come with a possible solution. I thought, wow, no one's ever said that to me. I'm like, he's right. And so folks, focus on that solution. Yes, I'm not saying ignore the problem, but focus on that solution. Be that possibility thinker. As a leader, that's part of what we are, right? We're possibility thinkers. We don't just focus on the problem. Number 6, relationships matter, folks. Why is it that the only time we reach out to a network is when we need something? That's like my kids, like my son. The only time he texts me is when he needs money. Like now I joke, but there's a pattern. He texts me, hey dad, like I already know, like just give it like 2 or 3 more texts. Hey dad, can I have some money? It just doesn't change. And see, many of us folks, professionals, that's what we focus. As an introvert, I will tell you something. I do not like the word networking. Number 1, it scares me. Number 2, I feel it's one way, like I'm a taker. Instead, I love focusing instead of networking of being a friend. And it's not just building those relationships, but it's nourishing those relationships, folks. I want to show you an example here of what I mean by this.
Amiga, happy Monday. Just want to tell you, I was thinking about you and just want to wish you a fabulous week. Hope you and your family are doing fantastic.
Folks, I just randomly picked someone in my network on LinkedIn, that professional platform that many of you are afraid to use because it's professional, okay? And I sent this message, a voice message. And this is the reply that I got back from this person. What are the odds if I ever do reach out to this person and ask them for a favor that they're going to respond? Pretty high, because I'm always building and nourishing relationships, folks, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Stop only reaching out to your network when you need something. I'm going to give you an exercise. I told you this is part, and I want to make it engaging as possible here as we can virtually, all right? So here's something simple that I want you to do. I don't care how you do. You can pull out your cell phone right now. In fact, some of you are probably already on your cell phone right now, like surfing Facebook, okay? Instagram. So what I want you to do is just pick someone in your network and either text them this message. Hi, Misty, thinking of you. I hope you and your family are doing great. Have a fabulous week. Just have some 0 expectations, folks. You can even email it to them. Just do it right now, seriously. Because what's gonna happen, that person's gonna receive the message. Number 1, especially over these last 2 years of pandemics, all of us have been through so many challenges, and we still are. We don't know what that person is going through. Maybe this message was just that little ray of sunlight in that person's life. Folks, do it. Next, lead with your heart. See, the corporate world teaches us, right, to be firm, to be tough, to be macho, right? All this. No, folks, lead with your heart. But Oscar, do you mean like wear my heart on my sleeve? Yes. But Oscar, what if someone takes advantage of me? What that might hurt. You know what? That might happen. Folks, back early in my career, I remember when I was at UC Berkeley, walking across campus, I would see homeless people there. And I remember my friends would say, Oscar, don't give that homeless person any money because they're probably going to buy some drugs, alcohol, whatever, cigarettes, whatever. And you don't want to enable them. And I used to think, but yeah, that's kind of true. I don't want to enable someone's, bad habits. So I wouldn't give them any money. And I would go home right on the weekends and I would walk into Walgreens because I was going to refill my parents' prescriptions. Okay. And there would be a homeless person outside of Walgreens. And I would pretend like the person didn't even exist. Then fast forward about 2 or 3 years after I graduated from UC Berkeley, and I'm walking back from lunch to my office, beautiful office building up in the whatever, floor. And this homeless person comes up to me and he says, excuse me, sir, can you spare some change? And without any hesitation, I reached into my wallet and I gave him some money. I don't even remember what it is that I gave him. And folks, I didn't care what he did with the money. I didn't, because who am I to judge? Thank God people didn't judge my family or myself, nonprofits, my teacher, 8th grade teacher, other people that have helped me. Folks, lead with your heart. In fact, I'm going to tell you something, folks. The majority of the 82 people that are on this webinar, I will never hear from you again, because that's just statistics the way it is. But I'm going to tell you something. You reach out to me 5 years from now and you're like, Oscar, I heard you speak. Can you help me? I will help you. Next, we oftentimes hear the question, what would I say to my younger self? Folks, can I tell you something? Personally, I don't give a rip what I would tell my younger self because I can't go back and change that. What I can change is my future. And I'll tell you something, where this really hit home was about 6 years ago. My mother was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And being that I was the family translator since kindergarten, the doctor gave the news to my younger brother and I. And the doctor said, Oscar, do you want to go? My mom at the time was in the hospital, and the doctor said, do you want to go in there and tell her, or do you want me to go in there? I will tell her and you translate. I didn't have the courage to just go in there and tell her myself because the doctor gave her 6 months to live. And so the doctor goes in there, my brother and I translate for my mother. And my mother says to me, son, what is there to do? And again, translating to Mom, there's nothing. I'm going to tell you something, folks. At that moment, I don't think my mother cared that her siblings spoke to her, didn't speak to her, her neighbor, none of that. All right. So the question is what will you tell your older self, folks? That's more. We can't go back and change the past, but we can shape the future. All right, we're going to get into some uncovering some career traits here, some things. And you're going to probably want to pull out a piece of paper on your laptop, or if you have 4 screens, open up another blank screen here, because there's some things that we're going to do to help you turn this adversity into positive career traits. But first, I want to share a little bit more about my career journey, okay? So you can understand, again, some of this part of my journey and some of these positive career traits here that I've uncovered. Like I mentioned earlier, I worked for startups for 12 years, 5 different startups. Those of you that are good in math, every year and a half, I was getting laid off. During that time and working in tech, my family and friends, we co-founded a nonprofit that was totally volunteer-based. Then I made a career transition, and I was getting tired of constantly getting laid off. And so my good friend of mine was on the board of the local Chamber of Commerce, and he said, we're looking for a chamber CEO. I said, what the heck does the Chamber of Commerce do? I had no idea. He convinced me to apply. My competition had 25 years of chamber experience, was the interim chamber CEO, and the board left her. Like, I have a better chance of buying a lottery ticket today and winning that than getting hired. And I got hired. After almost 7 years, I decided that I also, again, wanted to change. And I went to work at LinkedIn doing a 1-year consulting gig. And during that time, that 1 year, it gave me a little more time to flesh out the start of my own company, Espida Consulting here. Now, in terms of uncovering some of these career traits, there is what I call the concept of embracing fear. And see, here's the thing, folks. This is for many of us, embracing fear, that's not something we know how to do or that we're just readily do it, right? Like we run away. Like imagine if our house or building where we're at was on fire, immediately we run out to safety. But what do firefighters do? They run into the burning building while we're running out. Now, obviously, you can see this is an acronym here. So what do I mean by embracing fear? Number one, folks, be flexible. Again, one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is to be flexible, all right? Number two is embrace change. That is something that I also learned from working in the tech industry with the nonprofit, even the chamber, is embrace change. There's constant change. Be willing to embrace it. Some of us get set in our way, okay? Embrace change. Next, number three, always aspire for more, folks. Always aspire for more. Listen, folks, I'm going to live to 150 years old. Yeah, okay. So I just basically got out of my terrible twos and I'm shooting for new goals, new aspirations. Most of my peers, again, are thinking about retirement, which is part of the reason why I probably don't hang out with them, because they're thinking about, you know, sitting at the beach, watching the waves, and I'm over here thinking about riding the waves. And then lastly, folks, focus on the results. If something isn't working, stop. Reassess. Why isn't it working? Is there another opportunity? Like quit banging your head up against the wall because there might be a door just a little bit to your left. This is what I mean by embracing fear, folks. Be flexible, embrace change, aspire, and focus on those results. Next, folks, we need to look for fertilizer. We all go through challenges in life. Challenges sting, but challenges can also be the fertilizer to our dreams. How we react to the challenges in life, folks, it is our choice. And that's part of what I've learned how to do because I've been through so many challenges. So how do we look for this fertilizer? Okay. Number one, this is the first thing, and we're obviously you're not gonna be able to finish it here or do it. So I encourage you to do it before your head hits the pillow. But what I encourage you to do, the first thing is do a skills inventory. I want you to grab again a piece of paper or your on your computer, write down all the skills that you have. I don't care if you are good at them or not, but as long as you have some level of knowledge on how to perform those skills. Next, once you've written that list, and you know, for some of you it could be 30, 40, 50 skills, go back and circle the top 5 skills that not only are you excellent at, but you love doing, right? So next, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna now do what I call this positive career mapping. And there's another exercise that I want you to do. But before you do that exercise, I want you to think about some of your life experiences because it will help you with your skills in this career mapping that I'm talking about. So what do I mean in terms of life experiences? I'm going to use myself as an example. In Mexico, my dad was a butcher. And in California, when I was in 5th grade, one day my dad said, "Hey, son, I want you to get the buckets and knives and the towels ready." And I was like, what are we going to do now? That was the start, folks, of every Friday, every weekend for about 6, 7 years. We would go to the local slaughterhouses, kill a pig, cow, and a goat, and we would sell fresh meat the way they do it in Mexico and still in many other foreign countries. Okay, don't buy into, you know, Whole Foods fresh meat or wherever. Okay, this is really fresh meat here. And I hated it though, folks, doing that. I was embarrassed about it. All of a sudden, I disappeared from my friends on the weekend because I was helping my parents. I remember my friends would say, "Oscar, why don't you hang out with us anymore?" I'm like, "I'm busy." They're like, "Busy doing what?" I'm like, "I'm just busy." No, I was, again, like I said, I was embarrassed. All right. That's a picture. There's my dad, my little brother in the middle, and there's me on the far right growing some peach fuzz. Okay. And so here's the thing though, when I look back at this experience of the family business, folks, I've learned some very valuable life lessons. For example, I learned a work ethic. While most of my friends at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, back in the day, because YouTube wasn't around, I already told you I'm 53 years old, Saturday morning cartoons, were watching cartoons or maybe waking up at 11 a.m., I was already up at 7 a.m. helping my family. That's why today, I don't care, you know, you're Gen Z, or I don't care if you're the silent generation or anyone else in between, you will not outwork me. Number two, I learned delayed gratification. Mom, Dad, I want that BMX bike. No, son, we can't. We don't have the money. Yes, you do. No, son, we don't have money. Mom, Dad, please. No, son, we need to take that money and we need to reinvest it into our business. As a kid, it really got me upset and I didn't understand it. Today, as an adult, folks, I understand delayed gratification. Folks, I'm just like about less than a 10-minute walk to this beautiful lagoon, Blue Lagoon, all right? And guess where I'm at right now? I'm delivering this keynote, okay? Delayed gratification. I know many of you don't feel sorry for me and I don't expect you to, okay? Because afterwards, I'm gonna be going in the first swim, right? Family, working together as a team, as a family business, folks. Again, think about some of your own experiences and what are some of the lessons that you've learned. And what I want you to do next is I want you, again, grab a piece of paper, make it into 3 columns. The column on the left, you're going to call it life experience. The column in the middle is going to be feelings. And the column on the right is going to be skills. And this is what I want you to do. Again, using myself as an example. I mentioned to you the family business. How did I feel? That yucky feeling of being embarrassed. Being embarrassed. Why do I ask you to write what that feeling is? Because I want you folks to own the feeling, not have the feeling own you. See, many of us walk around with the chip on our shoulder. And it's like, no, you embrace that feeling. You own it. And then on the right, the skill is, what is a positive skill that you learn? Again, I mentioned work ethic. I told you earlier about UC Berkeley being in the remedial English class. Again, a yucky feeling, I felt inferior. But what is a positive skill that I learned? Be coachable. Because I went to my professor, tutors, my roommate, floor mates, anyone that could help me improve my writing, I went to them. And again, you can see other examples here. This is this positive career mapping exercise that I take people to, that I encourage you again to do. Next, next thing that we need to do is, I think it's very important that we put together what I call a dream team, right? It's this personal advisory team that is made up of, obviously, a mentor. Sometimes people ask me, Oscar, how do I find a mentor? And if you haven't figured it out, folks, I'm very simple. I just keep things very practical too. Just go up to someone and just start out by being a friend. Sometimes if you ask someone if they want to mentor you, at least for me, the word mentorship carries a heavy responsibility and time commitment. And I don't have that, but I'm willing to be your friend and let the relationship grow organically. Number 2, find a promoter. A promoter is someone that knows your skill sets, your level of expertise, and they have their antennas up. So when an opportunity comes up, you're top of mind and they're introducing you. This is how, and thank you, Misty. This is how Misty and I ended up here doing this talk, because I consider her a friend, a close friend, but also a promoter, a connector. A connector is someone that, again, knows you and what you like, your values, et cetera, and so forth. And maybe they connect you with other like-minded individuals. Number 4, a close friend. I know we all know what a close friend is, but I'm going to give you the OG, the Oscar Garcia version of a close friend. A close friend is someone that's willing to be honest with you. Listen, if I'm walking down the path and at the end of that path is a cliff, and if I fall off that cliff, I'm going to die, my close friend has permission to break my leg, because I'd rather have a broken leg than be dead. A coach is someone that maybe used to play the game or used to do what you're doing, but they still have some knowledge, et cetera, and so forth to do it. And then lastly, number 6 is what I call, again, I made up this word, sorry, I know here I'm talking to many people that from academia, okay, I apologize for this improper word here, but I made up this word called prac trainer because I couldn't think of it. And again, it is someone that practices what they actually train other people to do. In my opinion, a prac trainer is like the ultimate, all right? The ultimate. Next, it's important that we identify what our values are and our core values, because they serve, again, as that keeps us on that right path. Or another way to think of it is, if you go bowling and you put those bumper pads, they keep that ball on track to eventually knock down some kind of pin. And I want to share with you personally kind of my values here. Number one, for me, spiritual growth, that's important. Number two, personal growth. Number three, passionate. Okay, if you haven't figured it out, I speak more with my hands. All right, I'm very passionate and fired up. Some people say, oh, people are Zoom fatigued. No, they're not. They're tired of boring speakers. That's what it is. But if you find someone that's passionate, oh my gosh, awesome. Number four, help serve others. That's for me also very important. Inspire others and help others dream bigger. These are my values. But once you've written down your values, I want you to identify your true north. What are your core values? And for me, when I boil it down to its lowest common denominator, it's help other people dream bigger, inspire them, and serve them. These core values is what helped me as an introvert get out of my shell. Folks, I have a workshop later to do. Those of you that are introverts, you know that when you do a talk, especially nowadays when it's virtual and most of the people have their camera turned off, right? Like you feel like you're just talking to yourself. Like it's draining. But my core values is what gives me that energy, that passion to keep going and doing it. All right. I'm going to leave you here and I'm going to open it up to some questions here. But I wanted to leave you, I told you, with a 10-minute daily plan, something that I just want you to invest 10 minutes a day. It's a timed exercise, not a completion exercise, because I want you to slowly start building the habit to start changing that narrative and start focusing and uncovering some of these positive career traits. So here it is. Here's what I want you to do. And you can start today. You don't have to wait until Monday, even though it says Monday. But number one, folks, write your personal commercial. If you want to, go look up, get the book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and it will walk you specifically how to do it. But something even as simple as where the type of person you want to be, write it down, okay? And then once you've written it down, read it at least 3 times a day. Next, start evaluating who you are associating with, folks. Who you are. So not everyone, okay, energizes us. There are some people that drain us. And like I said, I'm not telling you to be mean to them or anything like that. But like I mentioned earlier, some people, we need to love them from a distance. Next, do the skills inventory exercise that I mentioned. Write down all your skills and then highlight the top 5 skills that you are excellent and love doing. Then the career mapping exercise that I walked you through. And then lastly, your values. Focus on what is your values, because again, when you identify what your core values are, that is what will help you overcome some of these challenges that we're all going to run into. It's basically going to be the fuel to help you keep going. I'm going to leave you with the takeaway here. And here's it is. When we love ourselves and embrace our story, we will be relentless in our pursuit of opportunities and kind to ourselves when we fail. Folks, embrace your story. We all have a story. Embrace it. Lastly, here's my contact information. I am super accessible. In fact, maybe sometimes a little too accessible. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Instagram. I have a podcast called Career Talk with OG. Okay. Also, those of you that are super introverts like myself, on the bottom right is my email. If you just want to go first to our website, fine. There's our website. But again, very, very accessible here. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. Aubrey, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, Oscar. I'm going to jump in for just a second to our attendees. I want you to go ahead and be putting your questions in the chat for Oscar if you haven't already. We are very fortunate to have with us today our interim dean of the Forbes School of Business and Technology, Dr. Maya Zelahich. She has been blowing up my phone talking about how amazing Oscar is. She said, I have to meet him. And she is in meetings in Chandler, Arizona this week. And so she has just a few minutes and she is super excited to jump on and meet you, Oscar. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Zelahich.
Thank you, Brandy. And Oscar, thank you so much, especially the concept of embracing our stories really resonated with me. When we started our Center for Women's Leadership in June of 2020, we started doing this in the times of pandemic, and we did it only based on the strength of the volunteers with the Forbes School of Business, volunteers within the UAGC community, and some external volunteers as well. And what a journey has it been, what a story has it been, as we're embracing our CWL story and we're celebrating today our second year of existence with all of you, Oscar, Asia, and all the other amazing speakers. I really don't want to miss out on mentioning anyone, so please forgive me in advance. What I love about this summit is that it's providing a lot of different helpful tools to all of us, our students, our alumni, our staff members, our members, and our CWL community. I also would like to reflect a little bit on some of the things that Oscar shared pertaining to your family, Oscar, and pertaining to the story and how your family life and your experience with your family shaped up your story. We were just attending graduation in Tucson in May, and so many students approached us and so many students shared these incredible stories. One of the stories that truly resonated with me was a student who lost her son to a suicide, and she still came to the graduation, and we literally took turns and comforted her, even though those were the situations in life that one cannot comfort each other. But as we reflected on so many stories within the Center for Women's Leadership, I would like to mention and thank everyone that was involved. Dr. Katie Theory and Dr. Karen Ivey, our founding members who were leading and guiding the center from its origin. Then Dr. Jenny Walker, who is no longer with us, who was chairing the center. Dr. Missy Resendez, who's chairing the center currently. Aubrey Baker, who's actually our CWL manager. One and only Brandy Havens, our MC and a lady that no matter what we tag her, we ping her, and here she is. I will miss out on mentioning someone. I'm seeing so many faces: Avisha, Gail, Morgan, Connie. I will offend someone. I will miss someone. So please, ladies, you know who you are. Dr. Sarah Steinberg, who was with us earlier today, she actually is still handling the mentorship of CWL. So this is all hands on deck. FSBT community, UAGC community, and many gentlemen who are supporters and advocates, and also helping us with the CWL Center. I would like to thank all of you. I would like to thank those of you who came externally, our members, students, alumni who came to celebrate with us. This is a huge celebration, 2 years in existence, based on the volunteer work and the work of our members. And right now, those of you who are not as familiar with what we do, we have these wonderful events. We have community chats, we have workshops. We're also working on research ventures, and we also are working on mentorship. I know Aubrey and Misty will do such a good job presenting you with all the links if you're not a member to join. If you are willing to serve as a mentor, please let us know as well. Oscar, I will hand it back to you for the questions and answers. And I would like to thank each and every one of you. And I am so happy that we're here today. And I cannot wait to see what future holds for Center for Women's Leadership. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So everyone, open, listen, I have at least another 4 hours to go here. But any questions that you may have, or maybe, I will tell you, I do have a weakness, and that is multitasking. So if you did put it in the chat, again, maybe Aubrey can help me, or someone can help me read some of the questions, or I'm okay if you want to unmute yourself too.
We did
Oscar,
have one.
I have a question.
Oh, feel free. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, well, thank you. Oscar, you had mentioned on the skills inventory, to make our skills inventory. And I just couldn't write fast enough to write down what you said to do. Once you get that, what do you write down? or circle?
Yes. So, so again, with the skills inventory, write down all the skills that you have, whether you're excellent or, or so. And then once you have that list, go back to the list and identify the top 5 skills that you are just like the best and love doing. And the reason why I ask people to do that is because not everything, we might be good at something also, but not really enjoy doing it, right? And also what it helps us too is later on with this, excuse me, with the positive career mapping, is that we then begin to start seeing some patterns, sort of kind of connecting the dots and be like, wow. Like for example, for me, as an introvert, I actually, believe it or not, I enjoy networking, but I enjoy doing it in my own, from an introvert's perspective. And I realized like, wow, as an introvert, what I come to realize that's powerful in any relationship building is listening to other people. We all want to be, and us introverts tend to be great listeners. And so again, right, this is part of that, the reason for doing this skills inventory, and then eventually the rest of the other exercises that I mentioned.
Well, thank you. And you mentioned the book, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Yes.
Did you write that book?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, it sounds good and it fit with what you were saying, but so I'm going to look for that. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.
Awesome. Our next question comes from Bill Davis himself, and it is, how important is authentic leadership today? How does it build trust in a learning continuum and nurturing process?
It's a great question. So, folks, here's the thing: is in terms of authentic leadership, I think first of all, I think it's always been important. What I've seen over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I've seen it been used more and more. But I believe that when we are authentic, it is the foundation to really forming a much stronger, deeper friendship, relationship with someone. Think about it, right? When we share something that is kind of vulnerable, right? A challenge that we've been through with someone, that we share that with another person, sometimes that person then feels comfortable then sharing something of an experience and vulnerability. Because what we've done is it's relationship building is like going up some steps, right? So you've taken that first step to share something of vulnerability, be authentic, and then you wait for that person, how they react. And not always, but most of the time that person then shares something vulnerability, and now they're up at that next step with you, and you just keep doing. So I really believe that authenticity is one of the core foundations to really developing deep, meaningful relationships.
That's fantastic. It looks like we have William Woods is raising his hand. If you want to pop in and ask your question, that'd be awesome.
Okay, you said so many things that were so valuable, but the one thing that really connected with me was when you were talking about the meat shop, the butchery, your dad, and you had your two, there's you and your brother there and everything. And
Yes.
How important is it to share with your family the lessons that you learned from your dad at this time?
That's a great question, William. So if I'm understanding this, how important is it for me to share those lessons with my family?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it is definitely very important to share those lessons. There is a challenge though, is when we're sharing those lessons with family, and that is that our family, unfortunately, tends to be our biggest critics. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly of Oscar Garcia. And sometimes they're just not receptive to hearing about some of these lessons. And I'm going to tell you something, William, for me personally, I'm open to sharing with them, but really what I'm looking to do is actually more to influence my great grandchildren. Because of what I just shared with you, that my closest family are my biggest supporters and critics. And so one day, I hope that my great grandkids stumble across, I don't know if YouTube will still be around. I don't know if Instagram or LinkedIn will be around, or this recording, because I know we're recording, will be around, and they're going to come across and be like, Oscar Garcia, what? This is what, and they're going to go back to their parents and be like, tell me more. Who is this? Who is my great grandfather here? This dude was crazy. I don't know. Maybe they'll be like, he's either crazy or that dude was ahead of his time. But I'm looking to influence generations to come, and I'm looking to love my immediate family.
Thank you so much. I just got to say one more thing. My dad, when I was 6 years old and my uncle had just died, he wanted me to give my mother some love. And so he says, look, man, when you're at your weakest, that's when you got to be at your strongest. And now that's flowing through 3 other generations of our family that we use that saying, when you're at your weakest, be at your strongest.
Exactly. Thank you, my friend William, for sharing that. Powerful and beautiful, very deep. Thank you.
I have a question, Oscar. Thank you again for the awesome presentation. It was really touching me. As I was watching and you were speaking, it kind of reminded how I grew up, and I born and raised in Afghanistan, and then going through all those in the 1990s through things, and then right out of high school, I was able to work as an interpreter for the U.S. Army, and then I moved to the United States about 8 years ago. And then I started working for the state of Arizona. So I've been with the state for about 7 years. And what you indicated, don't think about retirement, think about now, let the current be the decision factor for your future endeavors and things like that. And then I'm going on my 7th year. But once I hit my 10th year, I'm more kind of guaranteed toward my retirement and pension plan. But I feel like I'm very young, and I'm doing great in the States. I'm scheduled to graduate in December. Working with the state, continue to work with them is where my passion lies, as you indicated. But I'm also kind of hesitant, how can I balance what I've learned so far working for the state and what I'm going to lose looking for something, and then start from the beginning. What are some advices for some hesitant folks like me that can help me in my decision making?
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing this. First of all, I love your story too. Please share your story, however you feel comfortable sharing, because I sense that there is a lot of fertilizer in your story, my friend. But here's what I reckon. First of all, I want you to know that whenever you start something, you're not going to start from zero, because you have gained experience, wisdom, life knowledge. So we don't actually start from zero. Number 2 is do what I call taste opportunities. Taste opportunities. I remember when I was a little kid, because I'm a picky eater, my parents would say, don't say you don't like a certain food unless you taste it. At least taste it. And if you don't like it, okay, fine. You don't have to eat it. And so when it comes to career, job opportunities, do the same thing. Go taste something. Go try it out. See, this is also part of this generational baggage that we need to let go of, because some generations feel that, and unfortunately, there are still some industries that this is true, but less and less true. And that is that we feel like if we leave an opportunity, a job after a year or 2 years, we're being disloyal. And that's not the case. That's not the case. I am a firm believer of managing our career as in what I call You Inc. You Inc. Peruse Inc. Oscar Garcia Inc. Because also I've been in situations where I've been laid off multiple times, and I can tell you something. The company didn't say, well, Oscar's family has young kids and he's helping support his parents. We're not going to lay off Oscar. No, they made the decision that was right for them, as they should. And I'm going to make the decision that is right for me and my family. So those are the 2 things that I encourage you to do.
Thank you, Oscar.
You're welcome.
Bill Davis had his hand up a second ago. Bill, did you want to pop in with a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to just make a comment here. Obviously you have impressed us all and inspired us all, and you talk the walk and walk the talk, and you're the real deal. I mean, you live what you say, and I can tell that, and genuine and authentic. So the question that I have, and I love your advice, and I'm taking different things, making note cards. I'm going to look at this too, because I'm going to absorb some of this and practice it. So here's my question. I really loved what Dr. Sarah Steinberg said about our career paths and how they go, and it's not linear. When we look at our journey and we look at some of maybe the setbacks and how we bounce back and, how we're resilient, you are very resilient. So my question to you is, when you look at your attributes, because I feel I've gotten to know you here a little bit just listening to you, what are your top 2 or 3 attributes? Is it your attitude? Is it, what do you consider deep down inside you that makes you get up all the time and go and be, display grit? And I mean, because you're not going to be denied, you're going to accomplish your goals, and I can see that in you. So what would you say your top 3 attributes are?
Yes, thank you, Bill. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. And by the way, Bill, side note, because I'm very active on LinkedIn, I got to give you props. You are one of the few folks in academia that is active on LinkedIn, you share this event. And when I saw you share that, I'm like, I got to get to know Bill. And I'm actually going to send you an invitation to connect, my friend, on LinkedIn. So thank you.
Thank you.
To answer your question, for me is, one is a positive attitude. And it's a struggle, folks. Being positive is a struggle. When my eyes open up in the morning, I immediately begin to think about my day or the things that I have going on and so forth. And I really, really guard my mind, what I feed my mind. And really more, it's the subconscious mind. I rarely ever watch the news. I focus more on, again, audiobooks, podcasts. I mean, my daughter, she was just out here visiting me, and she's like, "Dad, you never watch the news." I'm like, "No, okay, I can rely on relatives or other people to just kind of fill me in." But having a positive attitude. Number 2 is I have learned to be comfortable in being different. That article that I wrote on that book, the title, I Am a Minority. Growing up, it's still to this day, the word minority tends to have a negative connotation. And I've learned to embrace the word minority, but from the standpoint that I have realized that anyone that's ever accomplished anything of significance is a small number, i.e. a minority. How many athletes win the gold medal? Those of you, I mean, I'm from the Bay Area, so the Warriors. Okay, I'm rooting for the Warriors. But how many NBA teams win the finals? Only one, right? And so I've embraced that being different. I'm like, hallelujah, count me in. Yes, I'm weird, and I'm proud of it, folks. All right. And then lastly, number 3 is having it's a giving spirit. A giving spirit that I really, there's many people in my life that have helped me get to where I'm at today, and continue to help me. And I just view it as a moral responsibility to give back to other people. So those are the 3 things, Bill, that for me are really, really important.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oscar.
Yes.
The 3 things that you just said, what was, you had embrace being different and have a giving spirit. What was the third?
Yes, and a positive attitude.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you, Oscar.
Yes.
I'm curious to know how you respond when people just say all the time, "You're so positive, you're so engaging, so this or that, so joyful." And if you're having a hard day and maybe you're not feeling internally joyful or excited, how do you reply to that, both internally and externally?
That's a great question, because you're right. I mean, I'm not always right. I mean, hey, that C word sometimes hits the fan, folks. Okay, so here's the thing: is first of all, I view it as a verbal gift that people give me. And as any gift, when you receive a gift, you express gratitude. So thank you. The other thing too that I realize is people don't know really what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what's going on behind it, really truly behind everyone's scene. So there's also this me having grace, right? That, you know, thank you, I get it, understand. The other thing too is that's important is having people that are in your corner to support you, to encourage you. That is also very important. And I mean, I have excuse me, you know, my family, my close family, my partner, to encourage it. I kind of refer to it again. My mind always works in these sort of analogies and metaphors, but it's like a boxer in between a round. They go back to the corner and they're like, all right, you know, it's all good. Everything's going to be fine and so forth. And life could be punching me, but you got it. It's important to have, again, those people in your corner to encourage and support you. And sometimes just be a shoulder to cry on.
That's excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask Oscar today? I don't want to cut people off if they feel like they have something to ask or share. If you have any appreciation or thank yous you want to express to Oscar today for his time, now would be a great time to do that too. Oscar, we have a ton of people in the chat expressing their gratitude and their thanks to you.
Thank you.
So I'll be sure to send that to you so you can read through them later.
Thank you.
I have one last question for you. And I know that you don't want to talk about going backwards. I put it in the chat. I was like, I guess everyone missed it. But what is the best advice that you could give someone that is graduating college and looking to go past that?
Yeah. So number one, there's actually a couple of things. Number one is believe in yourself. Okay, that is to build and promote your professional brand. One of the things back in the day, if I wanted to go on TV, the local TV station, that would take a lot. Today, open up a YouTube channel and start sharing content. Write a blog if that's what you're more into, it, or on, you know, something on social media. We don't need to. The door is so much more wide open today to be able to, again, build and promote our professional brand. And the sooner we start doing this, the much further along we will be. So those are the two things that I would recommend. I think was it you, Jacob? I think that asked me the question. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Well, we have
I have a question.
Oh, hey, great.
Oscar. Hi, Oscar, Jeff.
What's up, Jeff?
Dallas. How are you?
Awesome.
Yeah, this is awesome to be able to attend this today. I have a quick question. So you were talking about finding a mentor, a promoter, a connector. I guess how old would you say, is there a cutoff time where you say, I'm too old to have a mentor, I'm too old to have a promoter? Is there a time where you say, you don't really need that anymore?
Yeah, great question too, Jeff. You know what? I don't think there is an age to finding a mentor or a promoter or building that personal advisory team. In fact, actually, folks, I think it's just career. It's wise from a career standpoint. It's wise from a business standpoint to actually even look to younger generations as a mentor or promoter. For example, the podcast that I have, 58% of my audience on the podcast is between the ages of 23 and 34. So they're the oldest of the Gen Zs and the youngest of the millennials that are listening to my podcast. My own kids don't even listen to me, yet I have these young folks that are listening to my podcast and being influenced. And from a business standpoint, why is that important? Because they're starting to move up in their careers, taking on new roles, responsibilities. And in the near future, the next maybe 5 years, 7 years, they're going to probably come back and be like, hey, Oscar, can you come and do a workshop? Can you come and do a training? Just from that alone, but also just in general, I learned so much from watching and listening and talking to younger folks as well. It just makes us more relatable. And folks, life is just so much funner. I told you, I'm having a hard time finding 53 years old that are willing to get on the jet ski on this lagoon, but there are plenty of 20 and 30-year-olds that are willing to get on the jet ski with me.
Got it. Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Good to meet you. Good to see you too.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. This is Denise. Hey, Oscar.
What's up, Denise?
How's it going?
Fantastic.
Hey, good. Thank you again. I just wanted to, I don't have a question right now, but I just wanted to say I'm really excited to work on my positive career mapping because I'm a visual person and so a visual learner. And so I really feel like this is going to really help me figure out, where I am and where I want to go. So thanks for the tool.
Of course. Yes, do it. Do it. Folks, please, I promise you this is an amazing event. When I saw that the agenda and all the different speakers and it was free, I'm like, holy smokes. We'd have to pay probably like $3,000 to $5,000, honestly, to attend something like this. And you're getting free. But the key thing, folks, is we often hear that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. That's not true, folks. Applied knowledge is power. Applied. Do what people are training or teaching you, and you will get the results. And Donald, yes, you can drive the jet ski, my friend. What else?
Well, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from anybody in the chat? Oscar, you are so amazing. I'm just so blessed and honored to be your friend and just to know you and your circle. I thank you so much. Because of you, we're able to do things like this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Misty. Appreciate you. Thank you. And everyone, again, thank you very much. Feel free to connect with me. I think Angelica might have dropped the LinkedIn URL in the chat. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Okay. So thank you and enjoy the rest of the sessions. I really appreciate it, everyone. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now.